Hi, welcome back to the SOB recipe for living life with gusto at any age. And this is our last module of the program, and it's called Balancing Family, Fun, and Fame. And every once in a while, you just might see one of the things that gives me fun, and that's my cat. I cannot keep my cat out of my recordings. And so you're going to see a cat or a tail or something. That's part of my fun. And I have to tell you, I just posted something on a LinkedIn site where someone asked a question about how do you get to sleep at night? And do you sleep well at night? And I weighed in and I said, I work out every day. I work hard every day. I always pet my pets, play with them. And then I watch a couple of TV shows. And by the time I hit that pillow, I'm ready at 11 o'clock to go to sleep. So if we're talking about balancing fame, family, and fun, this is part of my fun with my cat. Anyway, I do want to start talking to you about balance because balance is constantly moving. You all have asked the question, how do you do a work-life balance? Or is it possible to have a work-life balance? Well, my personal opinion is, yes, it is, even though it goes haywire at times. But the majority of time, you can't have balance. The thing about balance is that it's constantly changing and constantly moving. For example, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, balance was one kind of thing. I mean, even then, I had a schedule. I've always talked about having a schedule. I used to get out of school when I was in high school at noon because I had all my credits already. I'd get home and then I'd practice the piano from 12 until 3 because I was preparing for a concert. And then at 3 o'clock, my dancing partner would come over and we'd rehearse from 3 to 6 because we were a dance team. We sang and we danced and we were kind of what you call semi-professional. And he was there until 6 and then he left. And then after that, it was dinner. And of course, at night, it was doing my homework. And that's the way it was through high school. When I went to college, I did college in 3 years, and I was in all the musicals, and I played the piano for the choir, and I was working too. I also had a job modeling and teaching modeling in a school in Boston, and that was every day. I mean, I had a schedule that I followed. Then when I moved to Miami and I owned a business, it was a different kind of balance. I spent a lot of time working, of course, and always studying and doing a lot of speaking to draw people into my business. But I also had free time because I wasn't married yet. So I had some free time and I took that time to do the fun things I never could afford to do as a kid. I learned to horseback ride. I learned to roller skate in a roller skating rink. I learned to water ski. I mean, there were just a bunch of things that I did. Then when I got married, and then I had almost an instant family, and I got pregnant right away. So within 13 months of marriage, I had 3 children under the age of 7. And if you don't think that required balance, it really did. But I had a great husband. And so, one would take the kids to school, and the other would take the baby to the babysitter, and then we'd pick them up at the end of the day, and then we'd have dinner, and then I would go back to work because I was teaching classes at night. And then my husband had built a shop onto the side of the house, and he was building stores there, and the kids, of course, were able to come in and out and see him. So that's the way it went. And then on a Sunday, when we were all free, we used to go to the beach because we all loved the water. We'd go to the beach, the baby in the front seat with me because there were no car seats at that time, and the kids in the back seat with the playpen and the water skis up through the sunroof of my Beetle Bug, and the cooler in the boat with sandwiches and drinks and so forth, and we'd get to the beach and everything would get unpacked, and all we would do would be swim, and that's why my youngest was able to swim. He actually could swim at the age of 6 months, believe it or not, because we were always in the water. And when we moved to a house where we had a pool, he could actually swim the length of the pool underwater and back. It was amazing. And that's what we did. Well, then, of course, when the kids grew up and I started traveling a lot because I was doing my speaking at that time, there was a different kind of balance because I used to leave my house on a Sunday or Monday and come back on a Friday. And that meant that my husband had the responsibility of everything during the week, but he was fine with that because he loved the kids. He loved being home. He loved all of that. And he traveled with me occasionally, but not very often. And then, of course, when the kids left and it was just he and I, that was a different kind of balance again. So, and I can tell you right now, I'm in I guess one of my last phases of balance because my husband passed away 8 years ago. So now it's just me and my pets, and it's a different kind of balance. I do a lot of things I didn't have to do before because he did them, but I also have a different kind of freedom that I didn't have before. So balance is constantly changing. That's what I want you to understand. What works for you this year may not work for you next year. What works for you in one situation may not work for you in another. The important thing, though, is to know that you can have balance, but it's up to you to create that balance. And remember something else. Remember when we were talking about taking control of your life, and I said to you that you can only control those things that are in your own hands. What happens because of other people or other situations, like with me, the airlines and the travel schedules and client meetings and things like that, I don't always control that. But the things you control allow you to work your day the way it needs to be done. So remember that as far as balance is concerned. And yes, you can have a balanced life, but it is going to be changing. And that is up to you. Now, when we talk about balance, there's a lot of different areas to consider here. I want you to really picture a circle with lots of little slices of pie. And that circle contains a lot of different areas, such as spiritual, community, family, finance, education, career, community. I mean, there's like 12 different areas, but what areas you put in there are up to you. Some of them will not be applicable to you, as some of them are not applicable to me. So you put those areas in there, and then you decide how much time do you want to devote to each. For example, family may be a big percentage, maybe 35, 40% at one time in your life. And yet now, because you're older, it may only be 20%. And of course, that may depend on where your kids live, where your grandchildren are, how often you see them, that kind of thing. And when we talk about community, maybe you weren't as active in the community before because you had a full-time job and the family, and now because they're not around as much, you are able to do more community activities. Or perhaps it was just the opposite. You did more community activities when you were working because of responsibilities you had in your job assignment. So there's just a whole lot of things that you have to look at here. But I want you to know that I want you to put the different areas that are of interest to you in this pie, in these slices of the pie, and then put the percentages in that you think would be appropriate for you, and then put in the percentages that you are really doing at this time. And then you will know what you have to change. Because if you are not living a balanced life, it's because you have made it out of balance. So for example, if you decide, well, I really want continuing education, and so therefore I'm going to enroll in a course, and that course meets Tuesday and Thursday nights, and you only make one of those nights because of other circumstances, your life is not in balance. So you have to decide how you want that to look, and that is completely up to you. But you need to schedule and see what it is. And for example, many of you know I live in 3 places. I live in Miami Beach, San Diego, and Palm Springs. Well, in an ideal world, in my ideal world, I would spend 3 weeks in each of them. However, I can't do that because of my cats. Cats are not transportable, no matter what you think. And when I had my dog went everywhere with me. But with the cats, I can't do that. So I usually only spend 1 week at a time in California, simply because I don't want to leave them longer than that. I have a wonderful, wonderful cat sitter, but still, they're my pets and I want to be with them. So again, you have to look at all the phases of your life and decide how you want them to come out. And that's where the pie and the slices and that balance wheel occurs. So that is all up to you. A very big question that I have for you is, what is it that you'd like to do that you haven't done yet? Now, I know it sounds like the bucket list that we've talked about, but we really have to look at that. What is it that you would like to do that you haven't done? What do you say, oh, I wish I had, or I wish I was going to? That's very important because that's something that at this point in your life, you should schedule in. Because if you don't, I mean, my heavens, you're not going to get to do it at any other point. This is the time you say, okay, what is it you want to do? Now, I tell you something. I have tried to write down the things that I would like to do that I haven't. And there's not a whole lot on my list. I mean, I know I've lived a very long time, but I intend to live a lot longer. So what is it that I haven't done? Well, the one thing I thought I would like to do is go to the Galapagos because of all the animals that are there and because I thought that would be really neat. See, you're just seeing my kitty right now. The other thing I thought I'd like to do would be to go to Mykonos because I just was always fascinated by that. And my older son went there a lot and he thought it was just beautiful. And I would like to go there. But with the unrest right now everywhere in the world, I've decided this is not necessarily where I need to be. However, those are two things that are on my bucket list. Other than that, I'm pretty satisfied with most everything else that has happened. Now, we've talked about you having this daily plan and having a routine. It is important that you have a routine, but it's also important that you're flexible. In other words, if something comes up, you can't say, oh, I can't do that because the whole point of having a routine is that you're up to date on most things. And when something happens that you're not expecting, you're able to take advantage of it. Now, it could be, for example, I have been in town for the last few weeks, so I'm catching up on all my doctors and my dentists and all the appointments that I'm supposed to have every quarter or every 6 months or whatever. So I'm catching up on those things, and that means other things are not going to be done. But I'm enough in tune with my daily schedule and my daily plan that I'm able to do that. So if a friend comes into town unexpectedly and wants to have dinner or lunch with you or wants to meet you for a couple of hours, wow, that's great. You can do it. So I don't want you to be rigid. I want you to be flexible. I want you to remember this is about having fun. And seeing old friends is having fun. So I want you to be able to do that. And that's the whole beauty of balance. Balance means, wow, I can change something. I can do something else. I just don't want you to be chained to something that has to be every single day without a break. Routine, yes. The flexibility, yes. So both are very, very important. The next thing you have to think about are your friends. Who do you want to spend time with? There are friends you probably don't want to spend time with. I mean, they're great for certain things, but they're not your favorite people to be with. Well, those are the people you get together with maybe once a quarter or every 6 months. But there are also friends that you rely on, that you see often, that you may live near. You may even have neighbors that you're very close to. The important thing is that if you have a good time with people, if you have friends, if you care about them, then you need to be in contact with them. Now, today, the telephone is not as used as email. And of course, I love the telephone. I love to talk to people. So you can imagine when I send people email, I'm doing it because I know they prefer it. It's quicker. You can get everything said without getting tied up in a lot of, other stuff. But the important thing is, whatever it is, make sure you make time for your friends. That's important because in the end, that's who you have. And that is also what helps you balance out your life. Also think about how much time do you want for fun and recreation? In other words, do you want to make sure that every single week that you and your spouse or you and a friend go out to dinner or have a lunch? Or maybe you like to bowl and you do that on a weekly basis because you're in a league. Or maybe there is a community event that you're involved with that you go to. The important thing is, again, to make sure that when you do these things, you're not saying, oh, I have to do that. I want to make sure you're saying, wow, this is fun. I'm glad I'm doing this. I mean, I don't want you to be leaving your residence with a scowl on your face. I want you to be going out because it's going to be fun for where you go and what you do. So you need to really say to yourself, what do I have in my life that is stimulating? What do I have in my life that gives me a lot of pleasure? What is it? Who do I know that I really like to be with because they're so much fun? I mean, there are people that I just enjoy being around because I always laugh and they stimulate me too. Now, you may have certain people who are friends who I'm just going to go have fun with them. And then there are people that you know who you're going to learn from, who are part of your business community or your learning community. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm a big believer in continuing education. I'm a big believer in personal development. To me, that's part of having fun and part of your fame and part of your family, because you're always stimulated. Now, I have to tell you something. My mom was the greatest. When people say to me, who was your mentor? Who was your biggest mentor? I mean, we have all kinds of mentors in our life, but my mother was my biggest mentor. My mom never graduated high school, and she really never worked. I mean, she went to work when my sister went to college, and she stopped working when I got out of college because she helped us through school. But I can tell you, she was one of the most brilliant women I ever met. She could talk to you just about anything. Why? Because she constantly read. She constantly was aware. She constantly watched very stimulating television programming. She could do crossword puzzles with a pen. I don't even do that. So you can imagine. And the point is, she was always learning. And I'm a big believer in continuous learning. So that means webinars, teleseminars, listening to CDs, watching DVDs. It means joining groups that put on sessions, going to conferences, going to workshops, maybe developing even a new passion in your life. Supposing you've been in the accounting world all your life and you decide all of a sudden, you know, I'm really interested in learning about you know, how to make baskets. And so you take a course in how to make baskets, or you become interested in spirituality, or you become interested in learning a second language or a third language. I mean, there's just all kinds of things out there. Now, I am a continuous learner, unfortunately, because I spend a lot of time going to these conferences and workshops and taking courses and watching videos and on my computer, always learning something new and getting involved in some new programming. And I have to tell you something. Sometimes I say, well, you know that already, but you've never looked at it that way. But a lot of people say to me, well, Gail, don't you know it yet? You've done so much in your life and you've studied so much. You have a doctorate. I mean, didn't you learn anything of that? Well, when I stop learning, then I should stop living, because learning happens every single day. So all I'm asking you to do is to think about what is it that you'd like to put in your life that would be an extra something for you. And you're going to meet a whole bunch of new people, make a whole bunch of new friends, get involved in a lot of new things that you never thought about before. And that's really what we talk about. And part of that brings you fame. Now, I have one kind of a fame as being on stage as a speaker, doing a lot of radio shows. You all know I do 12 radio shows a month. I do a lot of television. I'm considered an expert and an authority in the women over 50 market. So I have a certain amount of fame because of that. That and a nickel will buy you nothing. You still have to be an interesting person. And you become interesting by learning new things all the time. So I'm just asking you to think about where you can add to your value. Now, one of the things, I may have mentioned this before, but I'm going to tell it to you again. My person who takes care of my cats, who does this wonderful, wonderful job with my cats, she works full time at other things. But she's taking tango lessons, and she is having a blast. And she was telling me about all these people in her tango class, and they range from young to in their 80s. And there's one gentleman that she says is in the class, and I don't know, he's 82, 84, and he does the tango fabulously. And she says it's just a pleasure to watch him. And when she feels that she can't get the steps right, she looks at him and she says, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's kind of the feeling you get when you get involved in a new something. So I'm just saying, whatever it is, if you want to take tango lessons, if you want to learn a language, whatever you want to do, this is your opportunity to do it. I want you to think about where you want to be in the next 12 months. Where would you like to be able to say, what would you like to be able to say, I've accomplished in the last 12 months? If you're in the same place in 12 months that you are right now, you're not living your life. It's not doing the same thing every day by rote. It's getting excited about what you're doing. And as we've talked about before, waking up with that smile and going to bed with that smile because you are happy with what you're learning and what you're doing every day. So think about, do I want to be able to speak a new language in a year? You're not going to do it overnight, but you could do it in a year. Would I like to be better at a particular sport or hobby that I have? Would practicing it more make me better skilled at it? So think about, where do you want to be in a year? The other thing I want you to think about is to have what I call an idea book. Now, this is different than a journal. A journal is what you write down usually at night about what you've learned in the day, what you've done in the day. Now, there's 3 things I write down in my journal. One is, what positive thing happened to me that day? Because you can imagine there's so many things that come into your life that aren't positive. So I say, okay, what's the positive thing that happened to me today? And I always find one. The second thing you do is, the thing I do is I write down, what did I do today to inch me towards my goal? Now, it might be talking to somebody that I needed to get some information from. It might be learning a new methodology. It might be finding out how to do something that I've never done before. But the main thing is, you have to say, does it have anything to do with where I want to go in life? So I write down positive thing, and then I write down, what I do have anything to do with where I want to go in life? And then the third thing I write down is, how have I spent my day? In other words, was it a positive? Was it a negative? Sometimes my sentences are only 3 sentences. Sometimes I write 6, 8 sentences, almost a full paragraph and a half. But whatever it is, in your journal, that's your journal. You write down what you want. But an idea book are all those super things that come up in the middle of the night, while you're taking a shower, while you're driving the car. For me, it's on an airplane. And you write it down somewhere. You're going to find it again, because if you don't write it, if you write it on a little note or something like that, you know what happens there. You're going to end up never finding that note again. So the idea book is that you carry something with you that's easy for you to carry, that you write your ideas in. Maybe there's a play you want to see. Maybe there's a concert you want to go to. Maybe there's a special event on a particular weekend or holiday. But you write down the things that pop into your head that you say, hey, I want to do that. And the reason is because when you want to think about it, when there's a rainy day and you say, well, I don't know what I want to do today. I mean, I don't have anything planned. You're never going to remember these things that you would like to do or take advantage of. I mean, I've had plays come and go. I've had events come and go because I don't write them anywhere that I'll remember. I think, oh, I'll remember. And let me tell you something else. The mind considers the act of writing something down a completion. So if you get a brilliant brainstorm in the middle of the night and you write it down on some little pad you've got next to your bed, when you wake up in the morning, you don't even have to look at it. You can picture yourself writing it on that pad of paper, and you'll remember what you wrote. But if you don't write it down and you wake up in the morning, you can't remember. Your mind is clear, and you're saying, what was that brilliant? What was it? And then you're going to bother yourself all day trying to remember what it is, and you will never remember it. So an idea book is so important, and I want you to make sure it's one that you can carry with you, because not having it with you is not worth anything. It's important that you have it so that when you get these brainstorms, and you will get brainstorms, that you can write them down. Today, it is so easy to learn something new every single day. You know, there's still libraries that are free, although people don't go to them anymore so much because of the internet. And you can research just about anything you want on the internet. I was thinking today that, you know, the Yellow Pages have really gone out of business. I mean, I assume there are people who still use the Yellow Pages, but I mean, I was a big Yellow Page user, and now I look everything up on Google. So, you know, but there's so much you can learn. There's no reason for you not to find an area of interest if you keep in touch with things that are happening. Because whatever comes up, you can research on the web to see whether or not you decide you want to continue with it. And you can also see whether it's something that is trending right now. I think that's an important thing too. So the thing that I want you to think about is that every day you should be learning something new. Now, when I used to teach excellence and leadership and things like that, I said, if you could improve by 1% every day, just think how improved you would be by the end of the year. Now, if you're still doing things the way you did them, not that you won't do some things the way you have always done them, but if you have not improved what you've done by 1% every single day, what are you missing? That's all it takes is 1%, because some people don't improve by 1%. So think about that. What did I learn new today? This should be part of your journaling as well. Now, I said about positive things. I said about inching towards my goal. But the third thing I put down is, what did I learn new today? So that's what I want you to think about. How am I putting things into myself, into my mind, that makes me an interesting person, that makes me someone who others want to meet, who others want to dialogue with, who others say, gee, if you want to know that, call Gail. You know, there are people who you call, who you think that are like that. Why can't that person be you for someone else? I want to mention to you 3 things right now, because it's got a lot to do with how you communicate. One is assertiveness, one is passivity, and one is aggressiveness. And I want you to understand the difference. When you are assertive, which is what we want, it means that you believe you have the right to state your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, as long as you don't hurt anyone else in the process. Being aggressive means that I believe I have the right to state my thoughts, feelings, and opinions without caring about anybody else's. So the difference between being assertive and aggressive is that hostility. You just don't care about the other person's feelings. Now, being passive is just the opposite. Being passive means I don't believe that I have the right to state my thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And so what happens is I don't say anything. That's a person who's quiet at all the meetings, or whenever you ask them to do something, they meekly say, of course. And you know what they become? They become the passive aggressive. And that's someone who all of a sudden, when you least believe it's going to happen, they blow up like a balloon. Well, you know, that's not what you want. And then you say, what happened? She was so nice. He was so kind. This is not like him at all. I can't believe she said that. That's because the passivity has built up and become the passive aggressive. So just remember the difference between passivity, aggressiveness, and assertiveness. It's very important, and it's part of communication. And you're going to see why it's so important a little bit later. What are some of the things that you would like to choose that you haven't done yet? I'm thinking of things like riding a motorcycle. Now, I'm not encouraging you to go out and ride on a motorcycle, but I have to tell you some cute stories. I was speaking in Sturgis, South Dakota, and I didn't know anything about the Harley-Davidson rallies or anything like that, or the bike rallies. I mean, this was not part of my culture. And I drove in very late at night and parked my car, went in, got my room, went to bed. I got up early the next morning, and I was having breakfast, and I looked out the window, and there were so many motorcycles, I didn't know what to do. I thought, what's going on? Then I found out it was a Sturgis bike rally. And so you typically think, well, these are all biker people. You know, they're all, you know, well, I'm not sure about them. Well, guess what? You couldn't be further from the truth. There were so many professionals there, doctors, lawyers, dentists, I mean, accountants. I mean, you just can't imagine. And there was a couple, probably in their 70s, who was sitting not far from me, and they were talking about how excited they were about the rally and what a good time they were planning to have. And they were in their, you know, in their everyday jeans and so forth. And then they finished their breakfast and they went outside, and it happened I was seated by a window so I could see them. And they got into their black leather motorcycle garb, got on this bike, and I thought, no kidding. And I was blown away. And I thought, you see, you never know. Then I was doing a program in Lake Placid, New York, and I was speaking in the afternoon, and I had flown into Albany because that's where I was born, and my best friend from school was there. I went from kindergarten to 12th grade with her, and we're still friends. So I had met her, and she drove up with me. So we were having breakfast in town before my speech in the afternoon. And these four guys came riding up on motorcycles. And I thought, okay. And they sat down next to us at a table next to us. And of course, I can't not talk to everybody. So I said, I see, are you here on vacation, or what are you doing in Lake Placid? And they said, oh, well, we're here from Canada. I said, really? And they said, yeah, we're pharmacists. And that, of course, opened a big conversation for me, because my father was a pharmacist and he was president of the New York State Pharmaceutical Association. So that, of course, got me started on this whole pharmacy conversation. Well, it turns out that they're really great guys. They all have families, but this was their week to get away with each other. They do this once a year, and they had crossed the border into Lake Placid, and they were just going to have a week of fun. Well, you never know. So when I say motorcycles, you never know. What about bungee jumping? Have you ever thought about bungee jumping? Now, I didn't bungee jump. I went to Australia and New Zealand, and my son had a home in New Zealand. And so we were in Queenstown, and so he took us to the bungee jumping place. And he had bungee jumped twice. And he said, Mom, why don't you do it? And I thought, I don't think so. And I didn't do it. I'll tell you, I did not do it. But there were a lot of people there, all ages, all sizes, who did. And so when we talk about unusual things, you don't think if you had gone to New Zealand and you had bungee jumped that wouldn't be an interesting conversation to have with somebody, or to get involved in with a group who might want to say, wow, tell us more about it. So I want you all to have like a wow moment. I want you to have something that nobody else can think about. I remember some icebreakers we did when I used to do a lot of training sessions, and we were supposed to tell people something about ourselves that nobody else would know. And one person said they had a tattoo. Now, when we found out who the person was, I was blown away, because she was a banker who never wore any makeup, always had the same drab hairdo, was always, never saw her in anything but a gray suit and a white shirt. That's what she wore all the time. It was like her uniform. She had a tattoo. I thought that was really interesting. And this was long before tattoos were as popular as they are today. My secret was that when I was dancing on stage, I had done a flip into a bass drum and broke it. And they had no idea I was a dancer. They had no idea I could do flips. They had no idea about any of these things. And it was peculiar for me, because I had asked the band to move their instruments, because I knew what I was going to do. And I said, I'm going to get awfully close to that bass drum. And they said, oh, no problem. Well, there was a problem, because I went into the bass drum and I broke it. So that was something no one would ever guess about me. Now you all know, right? But the point is, I want someone to be able to say about something that you've done or experienced, wow, tell me more. That's a great way to get into a conversation. And so when we talk about balancing fame, you can be famous for a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be for being the best author, or being on stage, or being the best pianist. It could be that you have done something unusual, or you are credible for a different reason. So fame. Family. Where does family come into this? Remember, we are now living all over the place. Used to be that when you had a family, everybody stayed in the same town, and so everybody was very close, and all the grandparents and all the great-grandparents and all the parents, everybody got together. Now everybody's living everywhere, not only in the U.S., but all over the world. I mean, I have friends that have children all over the place. So, where is family in this? And thank goodness for FaceTime and things like that, so you stay connected, because at least nowadays you can talk to each other, see how the different stages of growth are going on, what people are doing. They can show you their artwork that you put on usually you put on your refrigerator, etc. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways to stay connected today. So you need to look at that as well. So when we look at all of these things, we have to say, okay, you know, how does that apply to me? And how am I continually learning what I need to do to improve myself? So when we talk about balance, I want you to think about, what am I doing on a daily basis that I love, that I don't want to change? What do I want to add? Where do I need to improve on that balance wheel I've got with all those slices of the pie? And for learning, what am I doing? How am I improving my knowledge every single day? So fame, family, and fortune. When we talk about fortune, to me, that's a part of family, because your family is your fortune. And when we talk about fun, you know, I know so many people who don't have fun. They literally do not have fun. They don't smile all day. I can't even imagine that. But, you know, they just don't smile. And I have to tell you, when I go out and I see animals, you know, usually I see dogs because they're the ones that are out being walked. I mean, I smile. I can't help but smile. Yesterday I saw 2 giant white poodles being walked, and there was a grin that just came on my face automatically. Not something I had to put there. I just automatically grinned because I thought it was fabulous. So when we talk about this, all I'm saying is I want you to have the best life you can possibly have. And the only way to do that is to have a life balance of fun, family, and fame. That's all a part of this. So I wish you good luck. I hope you have the best. I hope you've really enjoyed this journey. I mean, we've gone through what? We've gone through mindset matters, and then we've gone into being fit and fabulous after 50, so that's a part of this as well. And then we talked about your unique personal power, you know, and that's key, because your uniqueness and your personal power is so very important to make you who you are. And then, of course, we talked about taking control and seizing the day. And the only way you're going to accomplish anything is by seizing the day. So hopefully you learned from that. And then, of course, today we talked about balancing fame, fortune, and fun, and family. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. I've enjoyed doing it for you. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always reach me at gailcarson13@gmail.com. You can go to my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, anytime you want. And I think that you'll get a whole rash of things that you never thought about before. But guess what? Because you've been such great students, I'm giving you a bonus. And that bonus is learning how to get what you want through assertive communication. Now, let me tell you why this is so important. This is a program that I did for IBM for over 5 years to all their managers. And it was very unusual for IBM to have outside people come in and do programs. But they had me do this program for 5 years because they thought it was so effective. So I'm gifting you with this bonus because I think assertive communication is so important. So I'm going to see you in the next module, which will be on getting what you want through assertive communication.